coffee, and I figured what I would do is start this video with what the project's going to be, the first project that I'm going to put up here. Now that the garage is done, I debated on whether or not I would do my Caprice Cam DOD Delete, but I settled on the Fiero, mostly because the Fiero I've owned longer, and I've been working on this car for quite a bit longer than that. So if you're one of the few that have subscribed to me because of my garage build, thank you, first of all. Second of all, thank you for joining me on the car-related stuff now that the shop stuff's done. You might be wondering why a Fiero. Well, this is my 1988 Pontiac Fiero Formula. Let me just go around this side here. And they're actually, the wheels are from an 84. They're center lines from an 84. So why Fiero? And that story kind of goes back a ways, really. 2001, actually. If we go back here and we look back at, if you did the shop tour, you'll see I had this here from 2001. That's the first car I bought. Well, the engine in that car was a 3800 3.8 liter GM. Really, it's a Buick 3800 engine, V6. So I bought that car. That was my first car that I ever purchased. And then after I had that car for about a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, I say, I wound up buying a brand new one, a Pontiac Grand Prix GTP in 2002. So yeah, about a year I owned it, the 97. So I bought the 2002 Grand Prix GTP, and the GTP was the supercharged version of the 3.8 liter V6. And that really started my journey on modifying cars and messing and tinkering with cars. I took that car to Ohio for race tracks, the race days for Intense Racing. That was a company that made parts for them. Really, I think they started maybe slightly before ZZP, if you're familiar at all with this stuff. So it's actually that engine that's in there. So I bought that car in 2002. I drove it for about 4 years. I put a ton of miles on it. I drove to Ohio, drove to Florida, New York a bunch of times. I drove it all over the place. Loved that car. And modded it quite a bit, actually. At the time, a lot of those mods for that engine were a bit experimental for that M90 supercharger. And I was on that first wave of mods where they were coming out with cams. They had the modified rockers, all that stuff. So I was buying the new mods at the time on that engine. And then I was young. I had met my wife when I had bought the 97 back then. And then I proposed to my wife and she said yes. So great. Married my wife. In order to afford the wedding, because we were paying for it for ourselves, I sold my Grand Prix. First, I demodded it because I had quite a bit of money into the Grand Prix mods. So sold all the mods off of it. Had a buddy of mine who had a 97 GTP, and before I traded it in, we actually took the seats out of my 2002, took, I think maybe one of the mirrors, I can't remember. We swapped a bunch of parts over, the headlights for sure, onto his because they were newer. And then I traded in my 2002 for a Lincoln LS because I like those versions of the Lincoln LSs, the small V8s that was on the Mustang chassis. So then I sold it, and that kind of, it created a bit of a hole for me. I wanted to mod things. I wanted to mess with things, and that Lincoln, it didn't really have an aftermarket at all. Well, not at the time. I don't know if it does now, but back then there was a high compression V8. There really wasn't a whole lot you could do it to it. There were some guys that were, I think, throwing a supercharger on it or a turbo or whatever, and it wasn't worth the risk for me. It wasn't worth the money because it was like restarting basically. So I was lying in bed one day, and at the time there was a guy on the Grand Prix forum, Club GP forums, who had a Fiero, and he put one of those engines in it, and I thought, oh, that's interesting because these cars are from the 80s. I bet you I could get one for cheap, and I could do it. So that's what I did. I bought I bought a 1987 Fiero GT, and I did the swap because I was very familiar with the engine. Obviously wasn't familiar with Fieros, but who cares? I mean, when the first time I saw him, I thought it was a foreign car because it was nothing like I'd ever seen before. So I bought the 87 Fiero, did the swap, completed it, drove it. Then my wife got pregnant. You know, and if anything of value, same kind of thing with my wife and I getting married, anything of value, you start looking at it and say, well, look, I need money. I need to afford it. So we were pretty poor back then. So I got a second job. So I wound up working 7 days a week. And in order to afford having the baby and have my wife stay home and take care of her, I sold my 87 Fiero, my Swapped Fiero, sold it to a kid. And I used that money to help sustain us through that birth of my first child. Then we had a second child. And at the time, you know, I had picked up that second job, and I got called from my main job, my regular day-to-day job, to work on a weekend. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm working. They're like, what do you mean you're working? I was like, well, I'm working my part-time job. I need this job. So at the time, this guy who was the director of operations called my boss and said, hey, whatever Jordan's making part-time, give him that much of a raise because I need him available on weekends if I need him. So I got a raise to cover my part-time job at the time, and I was allowed to quit my part-time job. And then, you know, I hardly ever worked weekends at that other job, so it really worked out, and it was really a godsend. And really, what that freed up with that raise, it freed up some money for me. My wife went back to work, and I was able to start looking at other projects. And then I bought this. So I mean, it started back in 2001. It's now 2025. I bought this in 2012. So I've owned this for 13 years. It's been on the road once. Not
for very long though. Look at Daddy's car.
He's driving it and it says green.
He needs to move to the right a little. Okay, good.
So this is the second swap I was doing. I figured I did the first swap. It took me like a year and a half to do that first swap. And it was a very reliable car. I love that car. So I thought, there's no way this is going to take me very long to do. And here I am, 13 years later, and it's not even running. So I got it on the road a couple years back. It's just such a long story, but basically I got on the road, drove it to a place to have it aligned. The guy who did the alignment pulled the rear tire out so far that it snapped the axle, like it pulled the axle apart, and then it snapped something inside the transmission itself. It's a manual 5-speed transmission. So then when I got it back together to swap the axles, the transmission just buckled. And it was such like a pedestrian kind of thing. I hadn't really even driven it. I mean, it's tagged, it's got insurance, it's legal to drive. So since that transmission broke, I've been back and forth trying to, you know, get another transmission, get it in, get a whole new wiring system, got a whole new fuel system. Like I've done a whole bunch of different work to this car. And then here it sits now. So I got a long list of things I need to get done before I get this back on the road. Namely, I don't know if the transmission works. That's my biggest problem. My biggest if is the transmission. So I got another junkyard transmission. It said it worked. Of course, it's junkyard. I get it. I know the risks. I put it in, and then I went to drain it and put new transmission fluid in because I figured, oh, I'll just do it fresh. And it was my own stupid mistake of not checking it at the junkyard when I got it. So when I drained it, out came pouring rusty water. There was not a drop of transmission fluid in it at all. It was literally just rusty water. So I could turn it by hand, and everything turned and seemed fine. So I don't know how it's going to look. I put new transmission fluid in it. I don't know what's going to happen when I try to drive this thing. 2 years ago, when I actually started this thing and I did some work to get the engine and transmission back in, I started it, I put the rear on jack stands and hit the gas to see if the wheels turned, and the wheels didn't turn in first gear. All right, maybe I have a clutch bleeding problem. That's my hope here. I did get it to run in reverse. It did go in reverse, and I think it was second or third gear. I can't remember which one, but the wheels did turn, but first gear wasn't turning. A couple of the gears weren't turning the wheels, which is very unfortunate. So I don't know if it's maybe a clutch thing. I don't know if the transmission toast. Another thing is I don't know if the shifter itself, the mechanism, I took it out, and I don't know putting it back in if I messed that up as well. So I've got a whole spare transmission which is confirmed working here that I'm ready to swap in if the other one doesn't work. And I also have a whole other engine, because the engine in this thing, the first start I ever did, I had a gigantic vacuum leak, and that engine was a little sketchy to begin with. So when I turned that on for the very first time, got it started, that huge vacuum leak made a giant surge in RPMs, and I'm pretty sure I washed the rings. I'm pretty sure there's something going on there, because I have blow by like you wouldn't believe, and I'm also blowing blue smoke out the rear when I did get it running. So yeah, the engine probably not going to last. I mean, I'll do fresh oil in it, whatever. Transmission probably not going to last because there's rusty water in there, or there was. So I'm going to have to do a swap. One thing I'm hoping to do here is get it running, enjoy it a little bit, maybe take it to a couple shows here and there, just to putz around in it, not race it or anything. And then in the meantime, take this engine, freshen everything up. I got the heads off. I'm going to port the heads probably, maybe do a cam, get this one dressed up nice, hook it up to that transmission that I've got, the spare over there. And if I can get an 88 cradle, maybe even build some reinforced areas of the cradle so that I can put the mounts back on there and get that one ready to kind of swap in here when this thing kind of eventually grenades. That's my thought. So that's the project. Now, I haven't touched this thing in 2 years. Had a bit of a personal situation that prevented me from working on it last year. So didn't start it, hasn't run, haven't moved it really in over a year, and really sporadically over the last, 5 or 6 years, barely drove it, barely did anything to it. It's a total of maybe, 5 miles on it, ever since I've owned it in 13 years. So, gone through a couple different iterations of the wiring harness and the engine bay setup and mounts, and it's a very long story, but basically where it sits now there's a lot of question marks. I mean, obviously, I got the taillights to rebuild too, so there's a lot on this project that I've got to put together. First and foremost, pulling it in here, I use my lawnmower to pull it in here. Evidently, I don't know if you can see that. That is a trail of transmission fluid. So when I got under there, my axle seal on the driver's side is leaking. So I bought a new axle seal. I'll get that swapped in. So that's probably one of the very first things I'll do, is just because I know getting that axle in there, I probably jostled it around or damaged that seal. So I'll get a new seal in there, slide the axle in there. They are new, quote unquote, new axles, but they're pretty rusty. I'm not gonna lie, everything's rusty. It's an old car, but it's structurally, the rust is not approaching anything. The other cool thing, to get this up here, I added that winch to the front of my lift, unrelated, but that's how I got the Fiero onto the lift. I got the lawnmower to pull it up to the garage, kind of pushed it in myself, and then used the winch to get it up onto the lift. So I set that up, and I got the battery back here that I used. So I think first thing I'll do is probably get this battery out, get it charging, then I'll lift it up. I'm going to use my air jacks, the bridge jack, to get the rear of the car up. Then I'll take the wheel off, and then I'll do the axle seal when it comes in. And then like I said, I got a long list of things I need to get done before I can try test running this out. And I'll talk a little bit about the situation in the engine bay here in a minute. All right, this is the first time I've looked at this engine bay in a couple of years. So the Aeromotive fuel rails are relatively new, about 1.5 years old at this point. I I had originally the fuel rails going over the top here. So positionally, I've gone back and forth with this engine bay. I didn't have the alternator up top. First I did, and then I didn't. You can see it's really close to the strut tower there. There's not a lot of wiggle room there. I had a dog bone mount here because I had chopped off the other one over there. I've got a lot of different configurations of this, and it's kind of a long story as to why. However, here it is and how it sits. So one of the reasons this has not been on the road again is because of the exhaust situation. So I have a crossover here, and it goes down to some plugs from ZZP. And then I do have a full exhaust setup, which is on the top of that rack over there. That does fit, did line up, had it professionally done, looked great. Then, unfortunately, because I had shifted the engine from one side to the other, no longer lines up. So I'm going to use that as an opportunity. Basically, it's the new ZZP crossover one where it's equal length. So I'm going to get that. Hopefully that clears down here from a downpipe perspective, because what it does is it basically connects over there and tees over so they're equal length, and that'll make it sound a lot better. So that's one thing that I'm going to buy in the meantime. Get that up over here, and then I want to clean up this engine bay. I mean, because it's gone through so many different iterations. It's not looking great. It's looking pretty junky. It's never going to be a show car. It's just not what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clean it up, try to make it look as nice as I possibly can, get it running, as I said, and just enjoy it, really. So I'll walk through some of the things that I've done in the past as we go through fixing the things. But like I said, I got a long list of things I needed to do. First of all will be the axle seal. Then I'll probably get the crossover pipe, do the crossover pipe. I think I'm having either a vacuum leak or some sort of fueling issue. So I'm going to get my vacuum line situation set up right so that I can eliminate that. And then I might have a MAF update that I need to do, because that MAF was from a junkyard and I don't know if my tune is right. So, because what did happen the last time I did start it, it was idling, surging during idling. So I got to kind of diagnose that, figure that out, and get that fixed. Then I got to hook up the intercooler again. Right now I just got an open coolant pipes here. I got to get those rerouted back into the intercooler. Get up the motor mounted again. I got the motor over here. I got all these parts. There's the pump for the intercooler there, the additional intercooler lines, the overflow, all this other stuff that I need to get put back in here, get that fixed up. So it's gonna be a bit of a long journey. So if I get this running again, at least with the ability to kind of go up and down the street, that's kind of the hope. So just a quick update. This is actually the second day. I had a box in the front passenger seat of the Fiero with some parts in it that I had intended on bringing this once I had it running with the old transmission to a shop to have them remount a strut mount. And I gave them a couple other things to do. So here's the exhaust gasket, because they were going to reattach the exhaust. And then I'm like, what is this? This looks like a seal. Sure enough, that's what my note says is I had known 2 years ago that axle seal was leaking. So I had actually bought one. So I've got more headed into the in mail, but I guess the good news is I don't have to wait for those to show up. I can put in the new one now. So I just thought it was funny, past Jordan hooking up current Jordan without even realizing it. All right, so I got the Fiero up, kind of debating on whether or not I want to vacuum it out, because it's been outdoors for a few years, just kind of parked in one spot, and because of that, there's a lot of spider webs. A lot of spider webs. We'll see. I might shop vac it. We'll see. I might just leave them. So you can kind of see here. That's the leak. That's the guy. So it's been dripping since I got it up on the lift. It must have stopped dripping, and then when I pulled it in, and maybe on the incline, it kind of sloshed some of the transmission fluid back and filled up that cavity that it must have drained. My oil pan as well looks like it's been leaking. It's kind of pooling a little bit on the drain plug, which I did replace, but you can see the pan itself is kind of beat up a little. So I don't know if that's a valve cover leak. I don't think it is. It could just be the oil pan leaking, the gasket, which, you know, that's probably a project for a future time. But for now, I'm gonna just focus on that, getting that done. And then, so here's my transmission, my clutch line. And then it's kind of bent a little bit out of the way there. It's looking kind of crusty in some places, not looking great. So there was a local guy who had a couple big projects that were Fieros that he sold, and he had leftover parts, including brake lines and clutch lines. Now these are for an 86 and mine's an 88, but he sold them to me at a pretty big discount. So what I think I can do is just, I can try it out, and if those don't line up exactly right, I'll just, I'll bend them to the shape that I need, since these ones are so crusty. But I think, you know, that first what I'm gonna do is bleed it. You know, it's the slave's up there, so I'll bleed that and try to see if I can get a better bleed on it, and hopefully that's my issue. That's the cheapest, easiest thing to do first before, you know, confirming the transmission itself is no good. So I'll change that out. So I've got my air bridge jack here. So what I'll plan on doing is just using this under the cradle here and getting the rear up so I can get the wheels off. First I gotta hook that up and use the air to get it up. All right, I'm actually on a work lunch break right now. Can't do too much, but basically what I did was I took the bottom knuckle pieces off, plus the mount here. I took that bolt off. Out of the bottom, the axle nut, which was not tight, because I want to be able to reuse that, because I knew I would have to do this job. And basically got the new old axle out. Now it's crazy to me, this is pretty much a brand new, never run axle, but because it's been sitting, it's so rusty. They rust so easily. But essentially I've got that out now, and that's the old crusty seal that has got to come out and be replaced with my new one. So I've got the new one that I got in the mail and the old one that I've had for a while. This one is AC Delco. It says GM right on it, GM sticker. So I'm going to use this one and just keep that as a spare. And I've got my little tool here to get that out. But I'm also, yeah, so I'll just get the old one out and go from there, put the new one in. Kind of want to see if I can get a socket to put over this to tap into place the right size. I don't have one quite big enough. This is the axle one. It's not big enough. Maybe one's slightly larger than that. So we'll see. But that's where I'm at. All right, we're back. I did get it out. If you can't tell, it fought me pretty good. So this little tool here is supposed to be able to kind of wedge it behind there and pop it out. It was not popping out. In fact, it was just kind of tearing right through. I think it's just aluminum. So it kept doing that all around it. I just wound up getting little chunks. I tried a bunch of different ways of getting it out, a bunch of different tools. I wound up having to use a Dremel to kind of cut a bit of a relief cut in it. And then I was able to pry it out. It kind of came out once I did that cut pretty easily. But because I'm awesome and did a great job. I don't know if you can see it, but I got pretty good score in there, right about there. So it's on the side. It's not all the way to the end. The fact that it's on the side, I don't think the fluid's ever really going to be touching that. I might put like a dab of RTV on that as well, but I think it'll just kind of be over here. It's not going to be along any of the rubber seal. It's on the outside of it. So once I get this pressed in, I think I'm going to be fine. Not too worried about it. Obviously, it sucks that I did that, and I'm a real winner. But hey, you know, these things happen, and at least I got the stupid thing out. The other thing I was thinking was probably didn't need to do this yet. There's still a question mark on whether or not this transmission even works. So I'm going to be putting a new seal in a transmission that is still questionable. So probably not the best idea, but it is what it is. I did lose some fluid, but not too much. So yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is I did get a socket to fit over this, to just kind of tap it in. So I'll do that next. All right. It is now Sunday. I did get the seal back in. Sorry that I didn't record any of it or show you it in there. It gave me a tough time. I'm going to admit it. Like, it was not as easy or straightforward as everybody you talk to or see makes it sound. They're like, oh, you just tap it in. No, that wasn't the case. I wanted destroying, a couple seals, actually trying to get them in. Was having a really hard time. It kept going on one side, and then on the other side, it wasn't going in straight. And then when I go to the other side, it just pop out. And the socket I bought was too small, so I wound up having to go back to the store, and I found ultimately what I wound up working was that this little piece of exhaust piping fit pretty nicely over the seal, and so that got me started. And then instead of a screwdriver, because the screwdriver wound up, that was what was popping it out, so instead I used a punch, one of these guys, and the end's a bit more blunt. That got me past the point of it being popping out when I was doing it, so I just kind of held one end with my hand, held this on one spot and held the other side with my hand, and then just hammered that. And when I hammered that, I used a little stubby screwdriver, hammer, And then once I got it started, that was too big for the lip. It was, so I used a little stubby flathead, this guy. That got me in there, and I was able to just kind of lightly tap it enough so the other side wouldn't come out when I tapped where I was tapping. And I just went back and forth a million times. And then that eventually got it in far enough. But what a headache that turned out to be. Don't want to do that job again. But now that I know how to do it, sure, I'll do it. But trying to figure that out, having never done one of those before, was not a good time. Also, the other, I guess, good news is I had never really gotten the axle in that side to seat correctly. There's a little ring retainer on the end of the axle. Let's see, I might have another axle that I can show you. Yeah, right here. So right here, there's this little retainer clip that's, slightly larger than the axle itself. And you gotta get this in the transmission and shock it for it to kind of fit on the other side, and then it'll fully seat. It'll fully go inside the transmission. I had never gotten it to do that, which may have been my problem with it not wanting to roll in first gear. So my hope here is, now that this is fully engaged all the way, that I can try the transmission again, and we'll actually have some movement on that side. Because obviously when I'm testing this stuff on my own, I'm inside the car. I had it up on jacks. I could look out the window here at that wheel and see, but I couldn't look out at the wheel on this side and see. And I can't remember whether or not I got this axle to seal the seat correctly as well. But pretty sure all that messing around I did to try to get that thing to go in there the first time is what destroyed the seal. So here we are. The next step in my list that I wanted to get done was I'm gonna do a vacuum check. So I bought years and years and years ago, I bought this kind of cheapo smoke tester off of eBay. I've only used it once. Did find a couple vacuum leaks when I did use it. So it's pretty old. I'm pretty sure all it's doing here is like heating a little bit of an element in there, and then you're putting some liquid in there that smokes or whatever when you plug it in. So I'm gonna hook this up. I think I've got to stuff something in the intake, if I remember correctly, like a t-shirt or something to keep it from the smoke coming back out. So I'll just stuff all that in there, probably take this boot off. There's not a lot of vacuum lines anymore based off of what was stock, but there are obviously some. So we'll see. Well, I'm gonna try it. All right, so basically it just took a little while to start working. You can kind of see, hopefully, with this smoke coming out of that. I'm gonna take this off. So basically there is smoke going into the engine, and I don't see any leaks. I would like to see it come out of the exhaust to know that it's gone through everything. But everything else seems to be good. I can see it coming out of a lot now. That's obviously not a tight connection. So I was just taking this off, and I realized this is on the throttle body side, and it's only on the inside of this plate. So that's why I was only ever seeing smoke coming out of this side, because it just routes right out this side. And then the throttle plate's shut, so no air was going actually into the engine. So I took this little cover off of this little vacuum tee, and I connected it here. So we're gonna try this again. Basically this stays on power for about 3 minutes to get enough smoke, and then you're supposed to hook up the air. So I'm gonna let that warm up again before I put the air back on. Now we got a lot of smoke coming out of the front again, but this time I know for a fact that it's know that it's made it through the whole thing. But at least from the top, like there's a vacuum tee right here I was curious about. It's not leaking. And then there's one underneath the supercharger. You can't really see it under there, but you can see the smoke. And there isn't any. You can see the smoke over there coming from the, well, you may not be able to with the way the phone's doing it, but I can see it coming out of the throttle body, so I know that there's smoke in there. All right, so no leaks. Confirmed. Cool. All right, that's all she wrote for this. 2 things done. All right, so I thought I would kind of quickly walk through how I'm going to check the fueling tables to make sure that they match the old computer. So probably 2014-ish, 2015. I had Fiero Flyer, Dan, build me a wiring harness and a computer for my 88 Fiero. It may have even been earlier than that, but it doesn't really matter. So his computer, I think, is this one. No, this one's the James Brown one. This is Dan's one. So that I know was working. The car was drivable, and then based off of the math that I have. So I have since got a new wiring harness, which I still have the old one, but I have the new wiring harness. And when I bought the new wiring harness, it comes with a new computer, and it's James Brown wiring harness. So there's just slight differences between the two and how they're tuned. So because I was having that surging idle situation, I thought, oh, I'll just compare these two for the air fuel ratios and some of the other sensors, and kind of go one at a time and just adjust them based off of what I think could be impacting it. So I bought the digital horsepower, one of these old guys. I used to do this years and years ago when I was modding my Grand Prix. But basically, you have this in order for you to bench do it versus in the car. I get this little converter to run through to a USB into my computer, so I can run DHP right here on my laptop like I would normally. And then in order to do it on the bench, I've got this little ODB2 connection that was custom wired, which then plugs into my outlet, which I'll plug this into whichever PCM I want to be using, probably the James Brown one. And then once I make the changes between the two bin files, I'll write it to this PCM and then plug it back into the car. And then in order to compare them, and hopefully the screen's not too, wigging out too much for you, basically you just open up both bins. So I've got this one's labeled Dan, this one's labeled James, and then you go basically field by field, you open them up and you do the comparison. So the very first one that I went into, this is the air enrichment, I think, AE, TPS reallow. I'm not sure exactly, but it shows you the min and max values. And then it shows up red if it's lower than what would be the original value, you've exceeded the original value. So here in the James one, it's 30, and then here in the Dan one, it's actually 10. So you can see there's already a difference the very first field I went through. So I'm not sure exactly which ones I'll adjust. I'll go one by one, field by field. It's going to take me a little while. And then when I get that in, I'll then upload it using my bench little adapter here. And then I'll throw it in the car. And we may try starting this thing. I still got some other things I want to do first. I want to reroute those battery cables. Since I did lose some of the transmission fluid, I want to add a bit. I want to top that off. I still have to add the springs from my rear brake calipers for the emergency brake. Got a few little odds and ends that I want to do, but in order to just get it started and running, I might just load it and see what happens. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I just kind of wanted to show this one. So this is the MAF, the airflow table. And on here, there's a Hertz value and then a grams per second. And it says look up table of measured mass airflow based on the mass airflow input frequency. So basically, this is my MAF table. Every single Hertz value is different between the two PCMs. So, I mean, you can see even between stock and what the values are in the other one, there's quite a big difference. I updated it to 1.29 and stock is 1.62 grams per second. So I think that's literally just the size of the MAF and the frequencies in which they get written through. So I think that might be my specific problem. I'm still going to keep going through all of the various values here and updating them because it was running, as I said. And then once it's done, and once I'm done doing that, and once the car's running and driving, I'll bring it somewhere to get it officially tuned to drive in the environment I'm in and everything else. But this should at least hopefully control that surging. We'll see. All right, so that took a lot longer than I had expected, but it's done. So plug this in. It's pretty straightforward. Like on one side it shows clear. This this plastic housing was blue, so I just attached it there. And then this is make sure that that's connected, make sure that everything's plugged in. And then we just hit upload to PCM. And then there it goes. It's going to town, uploading everything to that computer. So it usually doesn't take too long. We'll get through this, put it back in the car, and then, like I said, I got a couple other things that I need to do before I'm ready to start it again. But I'm curious to see how it does. Obviously, the fuel in there is pretty old, so we'll see how it likes running on the fuel that's in there. I don't even know how much is in there. I might have to go get some more, or just use my lawnmower gas, I guess, for now, just to see if I can get it running. There's no exhaust. There's no, I shouldn't say that. There's no muffler attached, so it's going to be pretty loud. It's basically open headers, so it'll be pretty loud when it does start. Just wanted to kind of show the spider webs. That's what happens when I guess it sits for a while. I don't even want to touch it. So I just put the computer in. I'm just going to test the transmission here, the clutch. Hopefully I still have a clutch pedal. Yeah, still there. Side to side motion doesn't really want to go anywhere. I have to mess with that. Let's do this again. Alright, so it's just this mechanism down here I think needs to be greased, so it you know, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then reverse. Fourth, third, fourth, reverse. Fifth, third, fourth, first, second. So we're good. And now I'm going to put some WD-40 down there. Alright, we're going to try starting it just to see if the PCM did anything, and also first start in a couple of years. I checked, there's nothing running in line with the belt. I don't have the supercharger hooked up, nothing touching the exhaust. So if it starts, it's got really old gas. I imagine it's going to sound and run like crap, but we'll see what happens. gas smells pretty bad. I don't know if that gas gauge actually works. Running at about 1800 RPM according to that. The scan gauge is not working. There it goes. 850 RPM. All right. Crankshaft not learned. Okay. Sure. Don't remember having the crankcase ones with the other PCM. Or this one. O2 sensor. Bank 1 sensor one. Okay, let me check them out. So, I tried the other computer, the old one. Probably going to run it for a little bit, not too long, and just see if I throw the same codes as I was throwing before. I checked the O2 sensor, it looked good. The misfire could just, I don't know, it could be ignition, it could be spark plug, it could be the bad gas, I don't know. But if it comes back, we'll diagnose that. But the O2 sensor I just looked at, it looks fine. I mean, visually, obviously the wiring all looks good. We are creeping up, but this one, it did surge once, but it's been holding idle decently. Fuel pressure's holding at 50. Oil pressure's holding it, you know, above whatever that is. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it's charging the battery. Oh, see, I just heard it kind of search a little bit. I haven't tried giving it any throttle yet, just letting it learn. Yeah, see, the volt was only 11. I don't think we're charging the battery. Alternator maybe? Alternator wiring. Holding in a decent idle though. I mean, for sitting for 2 years, I'm okay with it. Can't drive it yet. Not brave enough to try the transmission. Still no codes on this PCM. I'll let it run. It's up to 110 degrees. I'll let it run for a little bit longer. I don't want to get too hot. Just get a little bit of a heat cycle in it. Make sure those gases are going to hold. I don't think there's anything leaking. Hints of the idle searching a little bit. We're up to 900. It's kind of like hopping around a little bit. I wonder what the difference is between the PCMs, like why this one's not throwing. Oh, there it goes. Found something it didn't like. Smoky in here. Open the other door and the window. Still no codes. All the fans kicked on, look at that. It's coolant that's not even in there. What I mean is like it hasn't, the thermostat's not open yet. Thermostat, well, I guess it should open at like 180, I think is what it was set for. So I'm not gonna let it get up much higher. I'm not feeling any heat up there, so I might kill it here. All right, so, well, 2 years of sitting. I'm happy with that. That's not too bad. I think what's confusing to me is why the one PCM through the codes. There was no codes, they never came back. Maybe it was just during startup that it hit that misfire or whatever, first startup or something. And then the O2, and the crankcase, the position learn as well, didn't come back, which I thought was a little strange. Ran it longer the second time, and it runs much smoother on that computer. So I'm gonna leave that computer going, not use the other one, since I'm not getting any codes with this one. But I'm happy with that. Obviously, it smells terrible with the gas that it's running, and I got a lot of blow by, which I expected. Maybe those rings will come back around after a couple heat cycles, and I can put some cleaner maybe or fresh oil, try to clean them up. But yeah, it might just be one of those situations where I run it till it gives way, I guess. But you can see it coming right through that breather. But anyways, it starts, it runs, no leaks, no fuel pressure held, which I'm happy with. Yeah, so did surge a couple times, but not as bad as it did. I remember last year, a couple years ago when I did do this, it would hunt for idle. It would go way up and then way down and then way up and then eventually just stall out. So, but I didn't let this get all the way up to temp. I want to just make sure I have enough coolant in this thing. I want to top it off because these are notoriously hard to burp. So see if I can get that all situated before I do anything else. Thanks.